This coming Shabbat is dubbed the Great Shabbat, Shabbat Hagadol. Several explanations are suggested by our sages as to the origins of this name, why it is considered a Great Shabbat. One suggestion is it's because the Shabbat preceding Pesach was the time when the rabbi had a license because of the complexities and intricacies of the laws of Pesach that he needed to expound to his community. So therefore he was able to expound at great length, and therefore it was called a great or a long Shabbat, as the rabbi gave a lengthy drasha. A second suggestion as to the origins of this name, the Shabbat Hagadol, is because of the last line of the Haftarah that we read on this particular Shabbat, that speaks about the great day that will eventually befall our nation, of the ultimate redemption that we long for with Elijah. But a third suggestion, which has gained widespread popularity, goes back to the origins of the Pesach story itself. The Jews found themselves in Egypt, and on the 10th of Nisan, which happened to coincide that particular year on Shabbat, the Jews were commanded and tested. Would they be willing to take a sheep and to set it aside to eventually offer it up? We have to bear in mind, in Egypt at that time, the sheep was the Egyptian deity. It's what they worshipped. It's what they assumed had power. And therefore the Jews were tested on the 10th as to whether they were prepared to affirm their faith to God Almighty and to demonstrate their independence from the Egyptian way of life and the Egyptian culture. The question which is asked is, why is it that we celebrate this affirmation of their faith and allegiance to God on the Shabbat before, when really it occurred on the 10th and it happened to occur that particular year on Shabbat? Isn't it the date that's important rather than the day? A beautiful answer that I came across is as follows. We know that when it comes to the offering of the Paschal Lamb, that the Jews found themselves, as we've already suggested, affirming their faith and showing their allegiance to God Almighty and being prepared to leave behind the Egyptian culture and their philosophy, their way of life. When it comes to the Shabbat, Shabbat is all about when we are able to testify and to affirm our faith to our way of life, to looking inwardly at what is important in our lives, in our faith, in our family lives. And therefore there is a direct correlation between the Jews' willingness to strike their independence when they were in Egypt through separating themselves from the Egyptians, and our willingness on the Shabbat to demonstrate our independence from the outside world, our willingness to show and have the confidence and strength of character to demonstrate to ourselves and to our people and to those around us that we are proud of who we are and for the values that we have. And therefore on Shabbat we look inwardly at who we are, what we stand for, and what makes us tick. I think this particular Shabbat, which is a Shabbat which has been orchestrated this particular week by Mizrahi UK with the United Synagogue, to make it a very special Shabbat with a program which is going to be emailed out so families and individuals can take part in this program. The idea is that we should consider Shabbat, consider what it means to be Jewish. More and more during the course of this coronavirus and this isolation that we find ourselves in, we are being forced to consider what is truly important to us. What do we truly value? What is essential in our lives and what is transitory? I hope and I pray that we will all be able to make the most of the opportunity that is afforded to us this Shabbat and during this period. It is an island in time. It is challenging, yes, but nonetheless, it is an opportunity for us to reflect and to consider about what it is that we are, what we stand for, and who we want to be. Wishing everyone a Shabbat Shalom and a wonderful, safe, healthy week ahead.